or they try to
And this came from that book. It's called Curve in the Road. This was also in Free Fall. And it's on the death of Richard Farina. Mimi, your story pulls away the scab which covered my heart. On the morning of your 21st birthday, Richard was a real bastard. He prattled on growing his hair. You sobbed in the shower. At lunch, you went to his signing party. He inscribed his first novel, Zoom. You sat by his side, dutifully smiling, Playboy saint. The surprise party was at your sister's. Atopos leered from behind the shadows. Willie Hines Harley caught his eye like a $3 whore. Fog licked darkening hills as Willie took the 30 curves at 90, lowered his body into sinuous turns. Richard steered stiffly from the back. The cycle flew like doomed Pegasus. Something in you felt the road curve. You heard the sirens wail miles away. 1 week later, when you returned home, you found the gifts Richard left. A dozen drooped orange roses in a dull copper bowl, dancing shoes, your 21st birthday card. Thank you.
It's called Burying Day Today. No sun, no moon, no morn, no noon, no dawn, no dusk, no proper time of day. She tried in vain to recall the rest of Thomas Hood's November poem as she stared out the bus into yet another gray, rainy day. Vancouver was often bleak in the fall. It wasn't even 4 o'clock, and already the struggling daylight was conceding in its useless battle with encroaching darkness. She was the only passenger on the bus. That was unusual on Davy Street. However, it was Remembrance Day, a statutory holiday, and the commemorative ceremonies were long over. She needed to go to the University of British Columbia to drop off a paper and figured she might as well do so today and save herself the hassle in the rush hour traffic tomorrow. Besides, she found something pleasantly contemplative about being alone on a bus on a dark day. She could stare out the window into the nothingness and just float along, listening to the rumble of the motor, the whir of the wheels, and the swish of the wiper blades. The bus pulled over at the last stop on Davy, just at Granville Street. "Give her up," complained the doors as the driver compelled them to open. A man entered. He dropped some coins into the fare box and turned to head down the aisle. She looked up to see who had dared to invade her reverie. The man was swarthy, muscular, low to the ground, and grimy. In fact, he was completely filthy. Mud on his face, mud in his hair, mud on his jeans. He stopped for a moment, propped the shovel he was carrying against a seat, and rolled up the sleeves of his ragged flannel shirt. "Is that blood mixed with the mud on his hands?" She shivered and wrapped her arms around the binder that contained her precious term paper, pulling it close to her heart.
A kitchen club. There should be poetry about cooking. Kitchen poetry. The God that accompanies each dish, each wooden spoon and thought. How all the ills of a household are laid on a sturdy table. The cutlery of talk. How steam, rising between words, softens hard news. How grief unfolds baking, brownies, and lasagna. How women are blessed, because when disaster or tragedy attacks, the small work of hands occupy. How problems of the world are worked out among utensils. There should be poems about braising, boiling, steaming, lifting delicate pastries to a cooling rack, ladling soup to bowls, the hug of homemade bread. The house that when you open the door says someone want to write in my children's cookbook, never underestimate the power of a well-run kitchen. I want to write about tears spilling into soapy dishwater, haircuts and ironing at the table, about laying a wounded little girl on the counter and washing blood with a damp dishcloth. I want to write about all these things that hold us to this room.
No one can be certain, but the doctors do not expect Joseph Lawrence to regain consciousness. It was his second stroke in 8 months. The first had left him partially paralyzed and unable to speak. I had visited him then, too, and though he wrote what he could, it was difficult communicating with the mute. His daughter, Mary, had come to care for him and held the paper while he wrote. He informed me, in his jittery scrawl, that he had begun a new work. Lawrence was an accomplished writer, and at the age of 74, his reputation was assured. Why, now that he could not dictate and could scarcely hold a pen, would he return to the blank page? But, to a writer like Lawrence, writing is life itself. To stop is inconceivable, no matter the situation. When I learned of his second stroke, I even went so far as to imagine Lawrence as a kind of Jaromir Hladik, praying to God before that decisive moment for a secret miracle, so that instead of outright death he might lay unconscious, composing his final work. For, in the end, is unconsciousness not the same as stopping the outer world while the spirit works on? Yet when I arrived and saw him lying calmly, his body and expression ambiguous, it was impossible to say whether his condition was a miracle or a curse. Mary was at his bedside, and though she looked to me, she did not immediately speak. Her dark eyes returned to Lawrence. I knew little of her. Lawrence was not the sort of man to discuss anything beyond art. In nearly 20 years, I learned only that his wife had died early on and that Mary had moved out as soon as she was able. It wasn't until after she had left that his career began to flourish. It was remarkable then that she had returned immediately. During our first meeting, she had hardly spoken, instead attending to her father's needs. She had become one of his appendages.
It's called Walking with Walt Whitman through Calgary's east side on a -30 winter day. Blue-white afternoon. The Bow River churns and smokes as the city rumbles, economy chokes, and bundled homeless build cardboard homes in the snow. Yes, Walt, this is the new world. And how often has your huge, burled form lengthened beside me as we strode through parking lots, the filth and ice of streets. Great seer, I listen for your relentless cheer and barbaric yawp. Unscrew the locks from the doors. Unscrew the doors themselves from their jambs. Truth is, it's not easy to loaf and invite the soul when you fear death from winter winds, when crystal meth is more common than a leaf of grass. But I'm learning from you. Today, when I passed one of the broken down men, I barked, "By God, you shall not go down. Hang your whole weight upon me." The man looked at me, as when the pain is far away, then suddenly clear. I kept walking, a small thrill of fear, and summoned to your great capacity for wonder as I headed into the white, blurred fields where birds and homeless scatter like chaff. There I quaffed the sharp chiseled air, the slow sad light of merciless winter, and said, yes, this world is for my mouth forever, and I am in love with it. Yes.